Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Whole Foods Market has Thanksgiving gatherings covered. First things first, reserve your no antibiotics ever fresh whole turkey today, starting at $2.99 a pound. Or go with their organic spiral cut bone-in ham, full of seared-in flavor. For sides, choose Whole Foods Market grab-and-go platters. Go even further and get your whole meal catered. Just order online by November 26th. Get Thanksgiving ready at Whole Foods Market. Terms apply.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
As Tharion faces the River Queen, Ruhn faces his father, and both are torn down by the ruthless city heads. Meanwhile, Bryce demands that Cormac teach her how to teleport. A skill, if learned, will make her unstoppable. While the boys watch Sunball, and under the guise of going to the gym, Bryce and Hunt are joined by Fury and Juniper to search for Emile in the meat market. Bryce and Hunt blow off steam before their journey the following day to the Bone Quarter, where comfortable lies are uncovered to the horrifying truth of what happens to dearly departed souls subject to the Under King's dominion. The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are enjoying the podcast, check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk. Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we're exploring Sarah J. Maas's second installment in the Crescent City series. This is Jac.
And I'm Amy. This is part 1 of this week's episode, where we're discussing chapters 25 through 29 in House of Sky and Breath.
This week we ask ourselves, to what extent are Bryce and Hunt on even playing fields, and how much does Hunt's own resistance to power delay Bryce's growth?
Themes we see in this section include disguises and manipulation, as well as powerful females and males with the illusion of power.
I love it. Illusion. If you think about it, it's all an illusion for men.
The patriarchy.
Burn it. Burn it. So chapter 25 starts with Tharion, and he's with the River Queen. And I just want to keep in mind that in the chapter before this, everyone was freaking out because like the storm was coming down. It was a lot of rain, and someone, even Bryce was like, someone is really angry. And so just keeping in mind, like, her anger is next level right now.
The River Queen's anger.
The River Queen, yeah.
So Tharion meets with the River Queen, and this is the first time we get to see her. And I noted in the first sentence that there are Sobex at her feet. Now, we've heard a lot about Sobex, and we've heard a lot about the River Queen, but I think this is the first time we're seeing both.
Mm-hmm.
I recently went to Chicago and was in the Field Museum and realized that Sobek is an ancient Egyptian reference.
Oh.
Thank you, Field Museum. So Sobek is an ancient Egyptian deity associated with the sacred and Nile crocodiles, and is often represented as a crocodile-headed humanoid, if not as a crocodile outright. Sobek was also associated with pharaonic power, fertility, and military prowess, but served additionally as a protective deity. I thought that was an interesting little tidbit. We have symbols of power, of protection at the River Queen's feet. We're going to talk about a lot of reasons why she's intimidating, but this is just one of them.
I love it. SJM loves going deep into references. Everything about this scene and Tharion's point of view is made for us to dislike the River Queen and not trust her, and for us to be like, she is a massive bitch. But again, we are in Tharion's point of view. So in his point of view, she is acting selfish. Quote, "The River Queen's throne had been carved into a towering mountain of river corals rising from the floor. She knew she'd selected this location for her throne so that any person appearing before her would be a bit off-kiltered, perhaps less guarded as a result." Okay, and?
Smart.
And?
Badass.
Like, she's a ruler, buddy. She's not here to be your friend.
Yeah.
I'm not your friend, pal.
Yeah.
I'm not your pal, buddy. South Park reference.
Oh, I didn't know that. I want to also talk about the fact that there's a coral throne. While Tharion says there's enough salt water here from the nearby ocean that it can sustain coral, quote, he had a feeling her magic had also created a good chunk of it. To me, the throne is a symbol of power, just like the Sobeks are, because her magical power can grow coral. Coral can't grow on its own here. It can only be sustained here. So I just, wow. Coral's, she continues to be a badass.
Yeah, and coral's sharp.
Yeah.
Coral hurts. I've seen a lot of TikTok videos of people cutting themselves on coral, and it looks painful.
Yes, it does.
Another quote to go into more of how Tharion perceives this moment. Quote, "Tharion lifted his chin, hands clasped behind his back. Observant, a vulnerable position that he knew his queen preferred, exposing the entirety of his chest." Again, and? Like, okay, so you have your hand, like your head's lifted. You shouldn't be slouching anyway, buddy. And then you should also, like, your hands behind your back, like a soldier. You know, like
how you should be.
Like right? Like, yeah. I never looked at soldiers with their hands behind their back being like, my chest is exposed for you to cut into me. But like, again, this is all from Tharion's perspective, and he doesn't understand what signs of respect even mean.
I love that you bring up that point, because this really reads as Tharion being smart and thinking about his own self-preservation, and in some ways almost manipulating the queen by doing exactly what she wants, right? Rather than what she expects. And yet he's not that smart. No. It's just, she's a queen. You should do these things out of respect.
Like, what does he plan on doing? Just like leaning casually against the wall, be like, "Sup, you want something?"
Yeah.
I don't know what he thinks.
I don't
know
either.
what he thinks from here.
He then thinks, quote, "She had the power to destroy him in an instant, but he knew she liked the feel of the kill." And this moment, again, told from Tharion's point of view, makes the River Queen seem evil.
Yeah.
And we just take his word for it, because that's all we have to go on.
Yeah, and he doesn't like necessarily reflect on like, I've seen her kill dozens of people in this very throne room. You know what I mean? Like, it's, I'm still trying to gather evidence to support his claim.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that he's showing me. And also, like, at this point, everyone kills in this world, so
what does it matter?
I know. I've gone real ruthless here.
Yeah.
Now, let's come back to why the River Queen is upset. She's upset because Tharion asked her daughter on a date. The daughter that he's engaged to, the daughter that he's been stringing along for decades. And again, remember that the date that he asks her on is to go above, to go into the main world. And, I mean, not a main world. Who am I? Look, me being Seist. Landis. Going to the above. He was doing it just to, like, placate her and to get her to go away, but he thought that she wasn't going to go. That's why he invited her.
Right.
The River Queen says, quote, "You know how overwhelmed she becomes. She is too fragile for such a thing." Yeah. Like, I don't, like, it's like, oh, I'm going to invite you to somewhere that's going to make you really uncomfortable. I know you're probably going to say no. In Tharion's most half-hearted attempt to defend the princess, he says to the queen, quote, "She handled herself well at the summit." A half-lie. She'd done absolutely nothing of value at the summit. Like, verbally he's like, I'm going to defend her. Internally he's like, she's a useless piece of shit. Like he absolutely, he's such a contradiction in his own mind, and his contradictions is like, he's just such a jerk. And he's pretending to give the princess value and strength. He's pretending to give her that recognition when in actuality he has no respect or recognition for her. The queen then responds, quote, that was in an organized, guarded place. Lunathian is a wild forest of distraction and pleasure. It will devour her whole. Like, the princess is not capable of protecting herself. She is not a warrior. She is a figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's the same way that if we had like any royalty or, you know, child of a diplomat, we're like, go wander around. No, that's not how that works.
Right.
And I think that in this moment, she's saying Lunathian, but I really believe that for the River Queen, Lunathian is Tharion.
I think that's a great point. I saw it a little bit differently. I saw some religious undertones to this conversation. Okay. So if you think about it, if we read, you know, Lunathian is a wild forest of distraction and pleasure. Think of it as being sin and vice and temptation.
Okay.
And she's safe in the shelter of the religion that is the beneath, that worships the River Queen.
Yeah. There's a bit of otherness to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's to me, it felt like for whatever reason, it reminded me of the time I wanted to get my hair dyed for the first time when I was 11 or 12. And my dad was like, what is she going to do next? Take drugs? And I'm like,
seriously?
What?
My mom, even though my mom was fine with me bleaching my hair at 13, but when I wanted to have just pink streaks in my hair, she had the exact same thought. She was like, it's crack and cocaine for you from here on out.
It's a slippery slope.
I know, right? And I'm just like, I just wanted some pink streaks, mother.
Yeah.
It's the same. That is the same here. Just wanted to go get a cup of coffee, Mom.
Just a reminder that we should always be questioning Tharion's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, while Tharion might not be privy to his queen's most intimate plans, he could only assume she wanted the boy for the same reason Pippa Spetsos did, to use him as a weapon, one that could be used to get the queens of the black, white, and red courts to yield. Now, all of Tharion's assumptions about the River Queen are about her ruthlessness and about her political intrigue or political desires. And I think he's incapable of seeing beyond that because that's the only version of her that he's seen.
Yeah.
So I think we really have to question, is she not capable of empathy? Like, is Tharion capable of recognizing any empathy in her?
I think that's the case. I think like the second you expect something from someone, that's what you're always going to see.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter, like, you know, sometimes you're right, but sometimes you're not. You got to give people not saying you give them like a blank slate of forgiveness,
But benefit of the doubt.
blank slate to let them dig their own grave.
Yeah, let them dig their grave.
Yeah.
But don't assume they're going to dig their grave.
Exactly. Don't hand them the shovel.
Or dig for them.
Yeah. Tharion is willing to betray his queen. And it was such a casual comment that I was like, excuse me? Like, I have no memory of this. Quote, and if the queen of the Red Court wished to overthrow his queen, to use Emile's gift to drain her of power, would he fight? Years ago, he would have said, hell yes. But now... it's like, I'm trying to find the moments that she's a bad ruler.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for it. Like, go ahead. Show me the times that she's not doing great. And maybe she does later on in the future. But the only thing we have at this point is that she let people hide below during the attacks. Like, give me more.
Yeah, agreed. Just like Tharion's point of view biases us against the River Queen if we're not paying attention, it also biases us in favor of him. Quote, Tharion lifted his face toward the surface, that distant, beckoning ribbon of light. Okay, Ariel, you want to go be part of their world.
Is that your dark?
Yeah, that's my dark note.
We have dark notes in case, like, so the other person can't read it. That's hilarious.
Thanks.
Yeah,
but it is very, very like Little Mermaid. Yeah. The above world is the better world.
I love him. Yeah.
And now part of me does wonder if we get another Crescent City book where Tharion's a main character, is it going to be Little Mermaid-esque?
He loses his voice.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not?
If he's in love with Sathya, she's a noble.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it happening.
Sathya is just so close to Sapphic.
Except Sathya's a TH instead of a PH.
I get it. All right. Touche. You brought spelling into this. You know I can't pronounce things. The queen then asks Tharion, are things above so great that you absolutely have to go up there? And that he resents his time beneath. And he says, quote, why can't both realms be wonderful? And it's meant to have, like, I feel like in this moment, in this, I can tell, like, in Tharion in his mind, he's like, nailed it, got her. I am so deep. Why can't both worlds be great? And I think that's also meant for the reader, right? Like, we're kind of sitting here being like, wow, he's really reasonable. He understands there's beauty in both. But it's Tharion, you know, like, I don't think that in order to do that, he'd have to find beauty in the beneath, and he doesn't. Right. What he finds, and I don't even think he finds beauty in the above. I think he finds beauty in whatever situation he's not in.
Yeah, any situation he perceives as having freedom that he doesn't have.
Yeah. And as punishment, the queen then tells him to go pick up trash to see just how much the above disrespects the below. I feel like that's a great punishment. I think that's a very fitting punishment.
It really is.
Like, did she, like, punish him to go get hurt or anything like that? Like, she doesn't sit here and be like, you're going to get 20 lashes. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
right.
It's like, you're going to go pick up trash and see how people above that you're so enamored with treat us, essentially. And, you know, people throw trash at him. He tries to throw water at them. More people throw trash at him. And he reflects on himself, calling himself Captain Whatever. And I didn't realize just how much he calls himself Captain Whatever.
Yeah, I also forgot that because it was such an annoying part of Flame and Shadow that I forgot it happened in Sky and Breath. And I think it's so annoying in Flame and Shadow because it's already established in Sky and Breath. Mm-hmm. And it seems to drag out a long time. This made me think also, like, the very initial reaction to Flame and Shadow was a lot of dislike of Tharion and Ethan. Yeah. They're whiny babies. They never, like, shape up. And I wonder if it's because SJM spends 2 whole books setting up their character arcs before any progression is made.
Yeah.
That we find it annoying.
It's true, because, I mean, at this point, having only read Flame and Shadow once, I mean, yeah, 1.5, there's no growth.
Right.
Both of them keep throwing themselves in really bad and stupid situations. Yeah. And I agree, where it's almost like they have to, like, dig their grave more so that they can get out of it in their own journey. SJM's gonna have a lot of work to do there.
Yeah. A lot of work to redeem them.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a little tiny moment that I want to point out, and it's when Tharion is trying to pull out a bike tire and a little blue crab comes out, and the little blue crab's like, go. Like, this is mine. Like, just, you guys can't see it, but we're like pinching our fingers like, no, this is mine. And Tharion's like, screw you, crab, take it. I feel like SJM must have done this on purpose. I feel like it's a callback to book 1 where Tharion props up on a rock and he pushes a blue crab off the rock. Like, we get a moment where we see the blue crab trying to get its way up the rock. Tharion comes up there, throws it out there. And I just feel like for then it was a moment of showing Tharion's true character, that he just would, like, throw this little creature into the water. And I kind of think that it's like both karma / again showing his true nature here too.
I completely agree, and that is such a good catch. In my notes, it's like 5 exclamation points. Like, yeah, damn, I didn't catch that. I completely agree that it's karmic. It is also a reminder of how proud Tharion is because of this quote. How many of his people had already noticed him here or heard about this? His ego is so bruised by this moment, and it's just like the cherry on top for the blue crab to make an appearance.
Yeah, and again, it's another thing to show that the queen knows what she's doing. Get his ego.
Yep.
And, like, that doesn't make her a bad queen. That makes her a smart one.
Yeah, I completely agree. This whole scene feels like a metaphor for Tharion's life and his life choices. The blue crab is a great example. Karma comes around. You treat something like shit, you're going to get shit back. So in the moment where there's a female human who drops some trash
Yeah.
into the water where he's already trying to clean up trash, this happens. Quote, Tharion rallied his magic, smiling to himself as a plume of water showered the female who dropped a beer bottle into the water, earning a host of shrieks and growls from those around her. 10 more bottles came flying down at him. For one bottle that you could have just been like, I'm going to ignore it, just keep moving on with my life, you react and then you get 10 more in return. Like, that's the perfect example of karma.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, especially all of this is meant to happen during his lesson that the above does not treat the bottom below very well.
Right. Tharion views this as a moment where he's the victim and doesn't understand that, hey, you didn't have to react that way.
Like, he's in the middle of looking at himself as a victim when he's in the middle of the lesson.
Right. Exactly. He then thinks this, quote, the River Queen fancied herself a benevolent ruler who wanted the best for her people, yet she treated her subjects as harshly as any Asteri. In my book, I'm like, the Asteri would have murdered him. Yeah. So I'm sorry.
He really would have.
Yeah, he just can't see any lesson for what it is and any act of mercy for what it is.
Because she's probably the one person who doesn't fall for his charm.
Exactly.
The daughter fell for his charm.
Bryce falls for it.
Yeah. Or at least dances with it.
Sure.
The queen was like, I have no interest in you, child.
No tolerance. At the end of the scene, Tharion is swimming away from the trash site. And this is a blip in the narrative that I wanted to read. Quote, the glowing first lights caused ripples on the surface. It was like swimming through gold. I felt like this was a great way for SJM to help us understand Tharion's mindset through the description of the environment. Mm-hmm. This is what makes her a good author. We've seen it in her other books, and so I want to take the time to call it out. The above is the source of this gold. Mm-hmm. So in anybody else's mind, above equals good, because gold is good, right?
Yeah.
Gold is fortune. Yeah. Gold is essentially what Tharion wants. Mm-hmm. If Tharion hated the above, the description would be completely different.
Yep.
And he'd be focused on the trash around him and how awful the above treats the beneath. But he never thinks that.
No, he doesn't.
And he ends the scene with, quote, something had to change for him, at least. And it will, but not in the way that he wants, because he's a petulant child.
It's like you've got many books before you change.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe he should have been in the dungeon. Maybe he needed some torture.
He could have lost a hand.
I think he could afford to lose both.
I mean, he also would have lost his fins because he would have been in the dungeon so long.
Maybe he deserves it.
Maybe.
We now get to Ruhn with the Autumn King, and this is right after the attack. Ruhn's there to get some answers about the blade, and it's an interesting moment where the Autumn King comes out and Ruhn notes that he was probably having sex because his hair's all muscled, like all mused and rustled. Muscled. I don't know. His hair's all messed up. And I think it's like weird because it's both human. Like, we haven't seen the Autumn King anywhere near romantic, right? Even though we know that he was in a relationship with Ember, we know he was abusive, but there's something about this moment that I felt like was a little jarring because it makes me feel like he's both humanizing in a way of showing casual power because Ruhn interrupted the Autumn King and whoever he was with, which means that person was probably just left in his bed. Probably still there.
Just naked. Just, you know. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think also in Earth and Blood, the Autumn King almost came across as pining for Ember.
Yes.
And this shatters that illusion.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know who he's with. It's definitely not Ruhn's mom, and it's definitely not Ember. You know, it almost makes him seem like a player.
Yeah.
And I think this moment, you know, he doesn't try to hide the fact that he was having sex because everything is about exerting like a domineering power over Ruhn. Mm-hmm. The Autumn King does everything he can to remind Ruhn that Ruhn is weak, the Autumn King is the strongest.
Yep.
When Ruhn asks about the history and the lore of the Star Sword, the Autumn King mocks Ruhn, even though the last time they were together, he also mocked him, but also was like, it's your fault for not learning about this.
Yeah, now he's like, oh, now you want to know about it?
Yes.
It's like, let me win. You will never win.
It reminds us, on one hand, Ruhn has shunned his heritage, but We start to get the sense through this scene that it's not because Ruhn didn't want to know necessarily. It's because it was an act of self-preservation.
Yep.
And I'll talk about that a little bit more further into the scene. I just had to point that out because the Autumn King is an asshole and Ruhn can do no right.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really hammered into us right now.
Absolutely. Ruhn has the sword because Bryce resisted it, and she gave it back to Ruhn immediately. And by the end of this episode, Bryce is going to have it and wield it as a weapon willingly. And it'll be the first time that she takes it, like I said, willingly, not like in a, oh my God, I have to save you immediately kind of a moment. And with the Star Sword, quote, his father reached for the black blade, but halted, remembering himself. It wasn't his blade to touch. Similar to how Bryce won't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
Similar but different, right? Because it's her blade, but she's thinking that it's not her blade, just like the father realizes that it's not his blade. And she's being called to it, he's not. But like, there's a lot of similarities that we're getting in the next couple chapters between Bryce and the Autumn King. And I think this is one of those. Subtle, but it's one of those.
I like that you call this out because at a first blush look at that, it feels like there's a lot of similarities. But when you take the time to be like, well, Bryce is resisting because Ruhn had it first.
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to accept her destiny, but she hears it sing and it calls to her anyway. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Autumn King, I doubt he hears it singing. For him, it's more about vanity and greed and wanting it and wanting to take it from Ruhn.
And showing that he doesn't want it. Because if he showed that he wanted it,
then Ruhn would have power over him.
Yep. The more that the Autumn King is threatened by Bryce, the more he diminishes her worth. Ruhn asks if Bryce is only fit for breeding, right? Because he's like, the Autumn King just like keeps trashing Bryce. And the Autumn King says, quote, she should consider herself lucky. I believe her valuable enough for that. And it's like, he was so concerned in the first book because he was like, the Fae are losing their powers. We're not as strong as we were. Mm-hmm. Why are you acting that she is not the quote unquote salvation of that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, why are you acting that like her children will probably be very valuable and will probably carry some of that power over? And therefore, like, her breeding is more valuable than his breeding.
Right. More valuable than Ruhn's breeding.
Yeah.
And it's just, to me, the epitome of male arrogance.
Yeah.
Of like, never mind everything I said in Earth and Blood. I am the best, even though I'm not the best. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what you think. It's about what I say. And
it's so like, oh, I want to control you with forcing you to have babies, forced births. But you're lucky that I want to even do that to you. Yeah. That I want to manipulate you more.
Gives me the like heebie-jeebies because it's so disgusting.
It's so disgusting, and it's, you know, frankly, a little reminiscent of some things. So modern sentiments.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Amy was just looking at me with like, huh?
I didn't know if it was like something else in the book.
That you were referencing. No. Modern sentiments I've heard. One thing I really love about the scene is how thrown off the Autumn King is by Bryce. We find out that he's actually been waiting for her to come and yell at him. And he's had to now change the way that he's approaching things. He's kind of like, he kind of makes a comment being like, oh, I've been waiting for her to do this. And to me, it confirms Bryce's choice. Like, she made the right call to not come and be pissy with him, because now he's having to act out. And he even says, even that choice, he doesn't credit to Bryce.
No, not at all. The Autumn King credits to Ruhn and is like, oh, you must have convinced your sister to not do that.
Yeah.
Because rationality is
a men thing.
Only a male thing.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. And Ruhn calls the Autumn King out for this. Quote, she decided all on her own that you weren't worth the effort. Mm-hmm. And it's more than just the Autumn King assuming only a male can be rational. It's also the Autumn King assuming Bryce as a human and as a female is not capable of growth or capable of sniffing out like, oh yeah, my dad's totally behind this.
Or capable of playing chess with him.
Right.
Like, this is all just chess. This is all them playing games with one another. And he has to accept that Bryce is the only one at his level.
It's true.
The Autumn King isn't getting anywhere with Ruhn. So he starts to kind of like pull at anything, right? Trying to rile him up. And he suggests to Ruhn that he, being Ruhn, should kill Bryce just like they used to back in the day. It's very Game of Thrones. It's very like, hey, like you don't want people who are more powerful than you out there. So like you should kill them. And again, don't you want to bring back power to the Fae? Like this is going against what you're saying.
Yeah.
I know that it's meant to get into Ruhn's head, and I don't think it works. Like, he tells him, like, we're good. Although it kind of works because later on, Ruhn will look at Bryce and see the Autumn King, and he can't handle looking at her. So it works a little bit, but I feel like we're starting to see more desperation on the Autumn King side.
I agree about the desperation, and I feel like the Autumn King is trying to goad Ruhn into hurting Bryce,
Mm-hmm.
and every attempt the Autumn King makes to put Ruhn down, he's expecting Ruhn to be like, well, I'm not like that.
Yeah.
He fails to realize that Ruhn has always been okay with being second best.
Yeah. He thrives.
He thrives. He really does. Quote, a second-rate prince who only possesses the sword because she allows you to have it. So I think this is important because this is not the start of Earth and Blood. At the start of Earth and Blood, the Autumn King did have a lot more power over Ruhn, and Ruhn did comply.
Yeah.
But Ruhn really broke away from that compliance throughout Earth and Blood, especially as his relationship with Bryce continued to grow and to reform.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about this is the Autumn King is not capable of understanding that Ruhn loves Bryce.
Yeah.
And because Ruhn loves Bryce and he is a good male, he might falter, but he cannot be coaxed into anger or resentment towards his sister.
No.
And ultimately, for me, this comes across as the Autumn King trying to exert power through words, exert that power over Ruhn and Bryce in their relationship. But Ruhn's love is stronger.
Yeah.
The power of love is stronger.
Think about the fact that Ruhn's even here. It's because Bryce handled the Star Sword.
Yeah.
And she did something that no one was able to. He's there to get information for Bryce. Like, I don't think he would ever have willingly gone to see his dad.
And ask these questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Power of love. Speaking of power, the Autumn King says of Bryce, quote, power attracts power. It is her fate to be tied to a powerful male to match her own strength. I would rather not learn what comes of her union with the Umbra Mortis. He sees them as a team to be threatened by. He sees that not only is Bryce powerful, but she already has her powerful teammate there. And I think this was done on purpose by SJM because this is said a few chapters before Hunt and Bryce decide to get together officially. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, I'm going to be mentioning it throughout this entire episode, power attracts power. So keep that in mind. There's a little bit of conversation between Ruhn and the Autumn King, and eventually Celestina is brought up. And I feel like Celestina's mask is well in play here. The Autumn King says, quote, the doe-eyed angel, a mirthless laugh. The Asteri knew what they were doing in appointing a lamb to rule the city of predators. What kind of sucks is, like, he's also not wrong because she does cave for Hypaxia.
Yeah.
However, she's being viewed that way because she chooses to be viewed that way.
Yeah.
I still think it's I still think it's like it's her weapon.
I agree. I think it's not so much a persona, but it is off-putting for these powerful men or males. And so she does use that to her advantage. It just so happens that she makes poor choices. Yeah. Which we can't help. However, her utilization of the feminine is very strong. Mm-hmm. At the end of the conversation, there's a point where the Autumn King is testing Ruhn, and Ruhn thinks, quote, Ruhn knew his answer would mean his life or death. We're really starting to uncover the fact that Ruhn has always been fighting for his life since he was a child. That's what all these memories and these interactions with the Autumn King are starting to teach us, because in Earth and Blood, he just seemed like a compliant little boy. Yeah. Right? Now we're really understanding he's compliant, or he appears compliant, because that is self-preservation. And it's just really, really tragic that every interaction between Ruhn and his father is life or death.
Which is ridiculous, because if Ruhn was the son that the Autumn King wanted. By his own logic, he'd have to kill him.
Yeah.
Because he'd be threatened.
It's
Like,
true.
as much as he resents Ruhn doesn't want to be king. The Autumn King does.
Yeah. Ruhn knows it.
Yeah.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Amy, I just left on vacation and I am gone for 2 weeks and I am so mad at myself for not bringing my Blissy silk pillowcase.
I just got back from vacation myself and really, really missed having my Blissy pillowcase and sleep mask.
I have been sleeping with a Blissy silk pillowcase for over a month now, and it has seriously been so noticeable on my hair. And I will say, I've noticed an improvement in my skin.
I agree. I feel like I've totally broken out less.
My hair has been so much more manageable this past month, too.
That's because Blissy's award-winning 100% mulberry silk pillowcases are, in fact, silk and not satin. And because of that, the fabric is more breathable, it's moisture-wicking, and it's gentle, which means your hair's not just going to survive, it's going to thrive.
With Blissy's silk pillowcases, it's completely machine washable and it's durable. Feeling how soft they are, I was really surprised. I thought this was going to be the most delicate pillowcase I own, and in actuality, it is a sturdy girl.
It's sturdy and yet somehow also naturally cooling. I survived one really, really hot night and I could not fall asleep because it was so warm. And that was when I missed my Blissy silk pillowcase the most.
I'm so obsessed with Blissy that you said you have the silk mask. I went in and got the bonnet, and I love that silk bonnet too.
What's so great about silk, whether it's your pillowcase or your bonnet, is it helps reduce frizz and tangles and prevents breakage, which, as Jack knows, it happens often the more you process your hair.
Okay, calling out my split ends there. Everybody loves Blissy. They have a ton of different prints and colors, and they make great gifts because there's an option for literally everyone. Even my stepdad loves his Blissy pillowcase.
They have over 1 million raving fans, and you could be next. Try now risk-free for 60 nights at blissy.com/booktalkpod and get an additional 30% off.
That's Blissy, BLISSY.com/booktalkpod, BOOKTALKPOD, and use the code BookTalkPod to get an additional 30% off.
Your skin and hair will thank you. And again, that's promo code BookTalkPod, BOOKTALKPOD, to get an additional 30% off today. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, Build your network and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Chapter 26 starts with Bryce and Hunt and Cormac. They're kind of debriefing post-attack, and Hunt is the very first person that Bryce calls after the attack. And we're going to be getting a lot of these moments where it's just like, they're mates.
Yeah.
We love each other.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. And, power calls to power, like calls to like. Bryce likes Hunt's power. Quote, Hunt kept himself contained, though, solid and still as a statue, wings tucked in, but brimming with power. One blink, and Hunt would unleash lightning on the prince. Mind you, we're in Bryce's point of view, and so she's like watching this, and she's like, yeah, he'd kill him. He'd kill him so hard. So horny for that. Like, she is so into it. Bryce and Cormac then discuss his abilities to teleport, and whether she's going to be able to teleport. And then Bryce says, quote, you're going to teach me how to do that. Teleport. Hunt whipped his head to her, but Cormac simply nodded. If it's within your wheelhouse, I will. It's both a demand and a statement, and queenly. And I know you're about to have some comments on it, but I just thought of this thing. Cormac does not flinch in her accusations of him later. I will come back to this. How dare you, Bryce? He's a feminist icon.
Oh, it's not where I thought this was going. Hunt throughout this scene matches Bryce's energy, and I think it's because she called him, right? Like,
yeah.
And that makes him feel like he's needed. That gives him reassurance that he's there to back her up. When Cormac is showing off his teleportation ability, Hunt demands that Cormac teleport to a nearby dumpster, and Cormac mocks Hunt by asking, should I teleport to left or right? Yeah. And, quote, Hunt leveled a cool stare at him. Left, he challenged. Bryce suppressed a smile. Just a friendly reminder that Bryce loves it when Hunt is on her level.
Yeah.
And this feels very Earth and Blood. This feels very much when they were doing their investigation together because they were both sassy. And they were sassy to other people.
Yes.
Like the moment Jack pointed out of Bryce calling Hunt, this chapter reminds us why Bryce loves Hunt. Not only did he come running when she called at the start of the chapter, he doesn't flinch at the moments when she's feeling self-conscious. Hunt, quote, tucked her into his side. Her clothes were still soaked and smelled atrocious, but Hunt didn't so much as sniff.
I mean, it's giving you clues that he doesn't care about how things smell.
Which matters later.
Yeah, it really matters later. So, why does Cormac let Bryce get away with her demand? He knows that she's powerful, and he knows what that power means. Quote, you should treat your title and gifts with the reverence they are due. And again, like, he understands the thing that Bryce needs to get. And I think that, like, one of his main lessons that he's doing for Bryce this entire book is drilling it into her head. Your title, your gifts, they mean something. You need to not just be it, respect it, and do it. So let's take a look at Mac Daddy. Quote, I was wrong. Some starborn blood, apparently, but not enough to be worthy of the blade. Baby MD. Mac Daddy.
Oh my gosh.
Like, he's questioning his worth. That's so sad. And like, it made me sad to hear him, being like, I wasn't worthy of it, because it just sets us up for the sacrifice that he's going to make later, that he doesn't think that he's worth living.
Okay. Make me have feelings.
Yeah, I will. By the end of it, may we all sob for Cormac.
No.
Mac Daddy, rest in peace. Not yet. I got to lust over him for now. Cormac is the voice of reason and understanding. Speaking about Sophie and Emile, quote, their powers are a gift and a curse. It's why he wants Bryce to step it up and to like start training and to get her to understand the full gravity of her powers. Like, if he does not get Bryce to understand this, it will be as much of a curse as you give it power to be a curse. So there's that. You looked at your notes like...
I was like, that was a good point. Did I say anything in response? I did not.
I was like, yeah. I know the way that you looked at your notepad. I was like, yes. Thank you. And then we have Bryce calling Jessica to ask for the coins for the bone quarter. And Jessica starts to hint to Bryce about Danica's real reasons for visiting the antiquities.
So I definitely viewed this scene as Jessica being equivalent to Yoda. Or maybe Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. Pick your poison. Quote, why don't you start by wondering why she was always poking around the gallery? Jessica's always asking questions and never providing answers. And in the process, she's always the master puppeteer.
Yeah.
Which feels very Sith to me. Feels very Emperor Palpatine.
Speaking of which, my mom...
Cold out.
No. When I was like a teenager and she didn't like one of my friends, she just said, ask me questions like, okay, and then what did I do? And then what did you do? And how'd you feel about that? Oh, okay. Like, she never once was like, oh, I don't like your friend.
Yeah.
She'd be like, okay, let me keep asking you questions until you're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah.
Bryce ends that conversation thinking, quote, Jessica did and said nothing without reason. This nudge was something to go on. So, thanks, Jessica, bringing it back to Danica.
Yeah. Always back to Danica. I think that this kind of adds more to the fuel of Bryce wanting to compete with Danica, more than just wanting to find her. Because Danica was always 5 steps ahead, clearly, right now. And Bryce feels like she's, just can't keep up. She's maybe 1 step ahead. And, I think about the brief chapter that we got back in Crescent City 1, where we got a view of Bryce pre-Danica's death. That conniving, thinking 5 steps ahead, that person wasn't there. Not in what we saw, right? She was a fun time, getting drunk, partying up with Danica. I think that once Bryce started leaning into the side of, this thinking ahead, this planner, she's realizing she just cannot keep up with Danica. She just can't be it. And so this thing that I have no doubt that she takes pride in is one of those things that's making her compete more and more with her friend.
And I think that's very much a symptom of early 20s relationships.
Yeah.
And high school relationships, and that's something you have to learn to grow out of. And I don't think Bryce has learned that yet.
Yeah, but it's also hard because, it was the thing that in the first book rocked her.
Yeah.
And I think that by the end of the first book, she was getting better at planning and everything. And so now here we are in the second book and she's like, I just cannot meet her.
Yeah.
I just can't match her. And we'll see this later on when Bryce talks to Ruhn. She says, quote, I don't know how much more of this surprise, Danica had a big secret stuff I can take. It feels like, I don't even know. It feels like I never really knew her.
I don't blame her.
I don't blame her. If I found out you had this type of amount of secrets, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm dropping you. That's no.
How dare you?
I'd just be like, you're going to lie to me?
Is it a lie if it's omitted?
Yes.
We can play this moral game.
I don't omit.
You overshare.
Yes. Back at Bryce's apartment, everyone's kind of gathered around. And in this conversation, we find out that Ruhn, Jac, and Flynn never went to college. And which is kind of ironic considering like they're the biggest frat boys I've ever frat boyed and read about.
It's true.
But I want to know, like, why make this choice? Why did SJM have it so that they all didn't go to college? I just felt like that was such a specific thing to add to it. And it could be that they were all rebellious and they didn't go, want to, like, we're not going to go to college. Not that college is the end all be all. Not that you have to go to college. But, like, they're aristocracy. You would assume that they would have gone to college.
Or not, because they don't have to work except to work in the Ox. And do you need a college education?
God, I hope so.
I don't know. I see your point. I also wonder, is it a cultural difference because of the age gap between Bryce and Ruhn?
Oh, yeah.
Granted, we don't know how long colleges have been around in this format,
Yeah,
etc. But I also think that it creates a divide between Bryce and Ruhn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's another cause for their long-standing period of we're not going to acknowledge each other.
Yeah.
Because she went off and did the thing that he never did.
It kind of adds a little creepy layer to it because I want to say that there was a few times that Bryce mentioned going to a college party.
And he was there.
Ruhn there.
Yeah, well, because he's a frat boy.
Yeah, but he's also 50.
Yeah, he was probably in his 70s at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just want to keep that in mind.
I also wanted to point out, just random little breadcrumb, in this scene, there's a fun little moment of irony where Ethan says that Jessica scares him. And, that just comes back full circle later.
It's great. Everyone, at one point or another, will observe how powerful Bryce is, / how powerful Bryce can become. Quote, Ruhn again considered his sister. She wouldn't let go of any of this. Bryce plus teleporting plus Starborn plus Star Sword with crazy killing abilities plus Bryce magically outranking their father equaled. Ruhn kept his face neutral, tucking away thoughts of what a leveled up Bryce might mean for the Fae. Everyone but Bryce is realizing this. Like, everyone is accepting her power, her potential title, and just taking in the gravity of everything, and she's still not there. She's still not it.
Well, in her mind, she's just a wee human.
Just a wee little lass.
Who has nothing but starlight, which, big deal.
I'm just a little human with a little bit of starlight. Little cute starlight.
I do think that while Ruhn is taking in the gravity of Bryce's abilities and what it would mean for the future, he's also feeling very sentimental in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. And I think he's sensing, or maybe I'm sensing, that Ruhn's feeling like my baby sister's growing up too fast.
She's growing up, ready to take on the world and become a queen and overrule the Asteri.
Quote, Ruhn smiled. Despite the old ache in his heart, he'd missed out on those years with Bryce. They hadn't been speaking then. Those had been formative, pivotal years. He should have been there. And I think this is important to remember because Ruhn has just come from speaking with the Autumn King, where the Autumn King was trying to shake Ruhn from his loyalty to Bryce. Instead, the exact opposite is happening. Ruhn has paternal feelings for Bryce in a way that the Autumn King never has. And it reminds us that despite what the Autumn King will try to do to manipulate Ruhn, we have to trust Ruhn.
Yep.
Because he truly loves Bryce.
Yeah, he does. He loves her, but he fears her. There's another moment where Bryce and her father are similar. From Ruhn's point of view, he notices, quote, Bryce pivoted and began pacing. Ruhn refrained from remarking how similar the motion was to one he'd seen their father do so many times in his study. Unable to stand it, he turned back to watch the Sunball game. We got moments of this in the first book. We're getting moments of this now. And we just keep comparing the two. And it's such a choice to keep comparing the two, to build up this momentum of like, they're so similar. To not do the two things from a writing and story point of view, I would expect. One, Bryce facing true dilemma on whether to choose to be like her father or not. Or B, I can't remember if I did one or two. Or two, having Bryce be the one to kill him.
I actually view this moment differently than you do, and I think I finally figured out in my mind why SJM keeps doing this.
Okay.
We have to recall first, Ruhn has to turn away from the scene because he has so much trauma from what his father did to him.
Yeah.
Right? His father would experiment on Ruhn, I assume in the study. So to see that could be Ruhn seeing a moment from his childhood.
Yep.
So let's remove Ruhn's feelings about the similarity because Ruhn has his own special trauma. We know that Ruhn, Hunt, and some other people view Bryce as having similarities with the Autumn King regardless of the Autumn King's actions. It's just the mannerisms. It's the things that you wouldn't expect Bryce to have because she didn't grow up with the Autumn King, yet they still manifest. To me, I think SJM is trying to plant the seed will Bryce turn into her father?
Mm-hmm.
Or does it foreshadow her ascension as queen?
Gotcha.
And we know at her core, Bryce is an extremely good person. And we know at the Autumn King's core, he is an extremely bad person. And I think for me, while they have similar mannerisms, that doesn't mean she's going to become him. It means she has the makings of royalty.
Okay, so it's more to highlight her royalty aspect rather than what could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if there's like a moment of, because her moment of royal, maybe this is at the end of Crescent City 3, but it feels like there's never a moment of doubt of her goodness.
Right.
I just like a little bit spicier. You know, I like a little bit more like, just like, you know, the moment of like, oh, I could go full evil with this.
I think we get doubt of her goodness through the perspective of others because of her scheming. Not because she makes a choice that is morally wrong, but because of the way she schemes and leaves other people out.
Does that, I don't think that questions her goodness. I think it questions her shittiness. Because I still don't think people doubt her choices. I think they're doubting her method and being like, why couldn't you? And it makes them doubt themselves more than anything else.
Yeah. I think it begs the question, though, do the ends justify the means?
Oh, yeah.
And that's definitely a more morality question in my mind.
And I think we'll touch on a little bit on that later.
Yeah. I also love this little marker of the relationship between Ruhn and Hunt and how far they've come. Because remember, they did not like each other in Earth and Blood. And Hunt definitely chose to show up at places just to annoy Ruhn.
Yes.
They beat each other up.
Yep.
Like, they don't like each other.
Several times.
Several times. Over years. So Hunt nags Ruhn about, do I get invited to Sunball practice? After Ruhn tells Bryce that she's not allowed to join their Sunball game. In the scene, quote, Ruhn snorted at the angel. You want an excuse for me to beat the shit out of you, Athalar? Then I'm down. It's just really cute because the rivalry is now friendly rather than having animosity.
It's still sexual.
That is exactly what my note says. My note says, by the way, the gay fan fiction I proceeded to write in my head was very, very graphic.
There is not enough. I mean, I haven't found any. I need to look. Art of Hunt and Ruhn, because you can't tell me if Bryce gave the okay that they wouldn't.
Do you want to know what scene I imagined?
Go ahead.
Do you remember Tessa Bailey's Fix Her Upper?
Yeah.
And how there's a sexy scene at a baseball field? Imagine that, but Ruhn and Hunt.
Oh, that's glorious. You know, it's not wrong for those two to be together.
I don't think so.
They're not biologically brothers. It's allowed.
Yeah, you can go on.
So everyone's watching the Sunball game. Everyone. It's just like Bryce and all the boys, which is again another moment of like, why is it always Bryce with all the boys?
Right.
Type thing. And you know, she makes jokes of like, I want to watch. It's not Love Island, but like, you know, kind of like reality TV show. And the guys are just like, no, we want to watch the game. So Bryce tells everyone that she's gonna go work out. And the guys are just like, great, we're going to still be on your couch in your apartment.
Watching the Sunball game you don't want to watch.
Yes. Quote, Ruhn watched Hunt glance between her disappearing form and the Sunball game, weighing which one to follow. It took Athalar all of 30 seconds to decide. When Ruhn was alone with Jac and Ethan said, Connor would have picked the game. Ruhn raised an eyebrow. I didn't realize it was a competition between them. Between a dead man and a living one. Ethan just typed away. Ruhn dared to ask, what would you have picked? Ethan didn't hesitate. Bryce. A lot to unpack. Like that, I kind of like condensed a couple of like paragraphs into this little bit. But one, Hunt chooses Bryce.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know he wrote, oh, it took him all of 30 seconds. I still feel like it was too long. Let's count.
We don't need
we
to
could
count.
Just sit here in silence for 30 seconds and I can tell you that is still too long. But he chooses Bryce. Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yay.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Ruhn's watching all this, it's still sweet. You know, he's looking out for his sister. He's still, you know, I'm sure he doesn't doubt that Hunt loves Bryce and Bryce loves Hunt. But like, you know, you still want to make sure that they're treating them right.
Yeah.
And then Ethan is also keeping track of Hunt's actions, and he's the one who's verbalizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the one who is saying that, like, Connor was really never in competition with Bryce. Like, that's the reality, because Connor sucks. Like, Connor would have stayed for the game.
Connor was just possessive.
Connor was so possessive. And then it made me kind of realize, I was like, oh, well, maybe Connor isn't in competition with Hunt. Ethan was always in competition with his brother. And I know people might be like, well, obviously. But however, I think every time that Ethan tells Bryce that Connor thought that Connor and Bryce were mates, I think that's like more to himself and competing of like, I think he wants to be proven wrong that they weren't mates.
See, I almost interpreted it differently based on what you were saying. I was interpreting it as Ethan is saying Connor, but means Ethan. Like, in some roundabout way, he's almost projecting his feelings and what he wanted. Like, he wanted them to be mates, Ethan and Bryce. And for Bryce to turn down Connor is equivalent to turning down Ethan.
Yeah. Either way, Ethan's getting it. Bryce is with Hunt.
Yeah. He has no chance. And
Never.
He's kind of understanding that now.
I think he understood he never had a chance.
He was just pissy about it.
He was just pissy. Chapter 27 is a really funny chapter. Like, I think it's hilarious. Like, there's some really good one-liners here. So Bryce leaves to go to the gym, and she doesn't go to the gym. Instead, she waits in front of the elevator for Hunt. And when he appears, she taps her wrist and says, "You're late. Let's go." Hunt then says, "We're not working out. Honestly, Athalar, we got a kid to find."
He's so innocent.
He's so innocent, and like, he's in his little workout gear. And he's also like, later on, I don't have it in my note, but like, Fury's like, "What the fuck are you wearing?" He's like, "I thought we were going to the gym. I didn't know." Here's my question though. Why does this moment have to be a secret? Why does Bryce need to lie about going to the gym and then secretly tell Juniper and Fury? Like, she doesn't even tell Hunt about it, and they have time to get to the meat market. I don't think that it's just because she didn't want to be interrupted by Ruhn. Like, again, he's only there with Ethan and Declan, and I think Declan even leaves soon. But she could have very easily had just been like, "Hey, we're going to go look at the meat market." But she's not gaining anything by not telling them.
Yeah, which I think is a clue, first off, that Bryce has a lot of secrets already. And she doesn't feel the need to reveal or overshare because of those secrets. I also felt like in this moment, Bryce didn't want anyone other than Hunt to feel obligated to come with her, because she wanted them to bond and wanted them a moment of reprieve.
Yeah, but she still could have communicated of, "Hunt and I are going to go do this." Like, they're clearly working on the computer stuff.
Right.
It's just like this is like more of like the tally against Bryce.
Yes.
That why people have such an issue with Bryce in this book, where she's just so secretive and so manipulative for no reason. And this is one of those, like, what would you have gained or lost?
Yeah, and we're going to see a lot of that in this chapter. And I think that it really speaks to Bryce trusts the people around her, but doesn't trust them enough with the important stuff.
And if you think about what they were just doing, like, they were just looking at footage of Danica, and they were trying to find more footage of Danica. So what is she doing? She's channeling Danica.
Yep. Keep the secrets from the people you love.
Yep. Bryce, of course, is dressed in her battle gear. Quote, "There was no missing her, not with her neon pink sneakers and athletic gear. That high ponytail that swished back and forth, brushing tantalizingly close to the glorious curve of her ass. She's hypersexual, she's feminine, and she has a task to do at a very dangerous place, so she is going to dress the part."
And I love that the sassy ponytail makes a reappearance.
Yeah.
It's a nice Earth and Blood callback.
Yeah.
There are various moments, both in the previous chapter and this chapter, that show us that the Reapers sent by Apollyon are not to be believed or aren't all that they seem. And I haven't necessarily pointed them all out, but I do want to call out one particular moment only because SJM is trying to clue us in, but it is very subtle. As they're making their way to the meat market and Hunt's questioning, "I thought we're going to the bone quarter," Bryce tells Hunt, quote, "Forgive me if I don't take those half-lives at their word." And I think it's just important to note, like,
we should be questioning it too.
We should be questioning everything.
Yeah.
There's also this moment of power that you might have missed that I want us to pay attention to. Hunt is asking Bryce about her thought process on why Danica might have told Sophie and Emile to come to the meat market. Quote, why tell them to lie low in the bone quarter? She sniffed and sighed with longing toward a bowl of noodle soup. First off, Bryce is distracted. She's not scanning the crowd to figure out like who to question and looking for anything suspicious, looking for Emile. She's looking at food. Food is power.
Yep.
Unbeknownst to Hunt, and I did double check the timeline of this. Bryce is already in league with the Viper Queen at this point.
When do we know? I wasn't sure if this was when she met with the Viper Queen for the first time.
So this is not when she meets with the Viper Queen for the first time. She's already in league with the Viper Queen, and she's coming to tell the Viper Queen's guards, hey, y'all are fucking up because you're leaving a trail of dead bodies looking for Emile. Try to be more subtle.
You're right.
And so this whole looking at food as a symbol of power, Bryce is in power right now. She has more information than everybody else.
Yep. I love it. I also just love SJM calling out age differences. I think when it comes to Hunt and Bryce's relationship, SJM really tries to poke fun / rectify her past writings.
Or acknowledge her past writings.
Yeah. So one of it is the age difference. So Hunt is talking about the meat market and being like, if Emile's there or not. And he says, quote, if I were a kid, I wouldn't have come here. Bryce then says, if you were a kid like 1,000 years ago. Forgive me if my childhood is a little bit more relevant. 200 years ago, he muttered. Still old as fuck. It's so funny. Like, it is absolutely hilarious. And again, it's SJM calling out the age difference and, saying like, yep, I did this. They're old. And in this chapter, she challenges, like SJM challenges the precedents that she set up in other books. And I think she's going to do that again with the mates. Like, she's challenging what she's done with what she set up.
I completely agree. It's very meta of her.
Yeah.
But as a reader who has criticized the age gap between Feyre and Rhys or Aelin and Ruhn, it is very heartening to read this. That like, okay, SJM is fully aware of what she's doing.
Yeah, the age one, I do like that I do like her, we'll call it the solve, whether, I don't think it's a solve, but I like what she does. The mate one, I struggle with a little bit.
Okay.
And we'll go into that.
I did want to point out that Hunt pinches Bryce's ass in retaliation for this moment, for being cheeky.
Yeah. When Hunt reminds Bryce that others want Emile too, she says, quote, she patted his cheek. Then it's a good thing I have the Umbra Mortis at my side, huh? Again, she's into that title, that power of what he can do, because power calls to power. And the more that Bryce leans into her power, the more Bryce is going to demand Hunt to lean into his power. Because already we have her, taking initiative, coming and looking for Emile at the meat market. She's already used the sword once, and she needs Hunt to be the Umbra Mortis.
Yeah, she needs Hunt on her side.
Yeah.
And she needs the Umbra Mortis on her side. This whole scene, as a result, if you're a first-time reader, you don't know. As a second-time or third-time reader, you know that Bryce being in league with the Viper Queen is a factor here. So it almost feels condescending for her to be like, I need the Umbra Mortis.
Yeah.
But I think it's performative in like a well-meaning sort of way of we're still a team. I still want you part of this, even though I'm keeping secrets from you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot about this, like why I know Bryce needed to go talk to the Viper Queen's guards. She could have just said, I'm going out with Fury and Juniper.
Yeah.
Right? Hunt didn't have to come along.
No.
Whatever the case. So I think Hunt being there is important to Bryce. So why does Bryce not tell Hunt? Because she definitely loops in Juniper and Fury before, I think.
Oh, you think they know that they're not actually looking for Emile?
I don't know about that, but I think they know about Emile's whereabouts before Hunt does.
Oh, well, we definitely know with Fury because she arranges.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So why not tell Hunt? And I think part of it is not wanting to put Hunt in a tricky situation with Tharion and Cormac, who are also hunting for Emile. And Tharion's technically Hunt's friend, but Maybe I'm making up excuses for Bryce.
I feel like you're making excuses for Bryce.
That's fine.
I mean, no, but I mean, it's like you're right though, because this whole point is for us to like find the reasoning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, it's even if you are making excuses, it's the excuses that she's doing in her head, because right now it doesn't make sense, and we have to ask ourselves, okay, well, if this is what Bryce is telling herself in her head, does it make sense for her?
Yeah.
To be making those thoughts. So keep making excuses for her, but like I think that it's like for our listeners to know, it's not us making excuses, it's us being like, okay, well, if this is how Bryce is thinking, then does that make sense for Bryce?
Right. Whether or not we agree with her.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your comments based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our forum at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. You can follow us on TikTok or Instagram at the handle booktalkforbooktalk. Bye! Not complete heathen.
I love it because I know I'm going to put that at the end of an episode. Air thingy. Purifier.
Oh, thank you. I was like, what's that dinging?
That is me.
Okay.
No matter how much I tell it to stop. I'm on airplane mode. Oh, maybe
It's because you're
I'm
connected
on Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Okay, let me get off Wi-Fi. What now, bitch? It's still going.
And you're on Do Not Disturb?
And I'm off Wi-Fi. It's almost caught up.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.